Welcome to the Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast, a show created to help painting company owners build a thriving painting business that does well over $1 million in annual revenue. I'm your host, Brandon Pierpont, founder of Painter Marketing Pros and creator of the popular PCA educational series Learn, Do, Grow, Marketing for Painters. In each episode, I'll be sharing proven tips, strategies, and processes from leading experts in the industry on how they found success in their painting business. We will be interviewing owners of the most successful painting companies in North America and learning from their experiences. In this series titled Relationships Are Key, Candelario Valenzuela of VS Pro Painting will be sharing how he has grown his painting company to $2 million in annual revenue with a 100% year-over-year growth rate, and the advice he has for ambitious painting company owners who are looking to follow in his footsteps. In episode 1, Candelario discussed the importance of effective systems to scale. In episode 2, Candelario outlined how knowing your numbers is critical and which numbers he most focuses on. In episode 3, Candelario discussed the importance of reinvesting into your business and the decisions he has made as his company has grown. And in the final episode, Episode 4, this episode, Candelario will deep dive into the importance of networking and some actionable insights he has on how to most effectively network for your painting company. If you want to ask Candelario questions related to anything in this podcast series, you can do so in our exclusive Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast forum on Facebook. Just search for Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast forum on Facebook and request to join the group, or type in the URL facebook.com/groups/Painter Marketing Mastermind. Again, that URL is facebook.com/groups/Painter Marketing Mastermind. There you can ask Candelario questions directly by tagging him with your question so you can see how anything discussed here applies to your particular painting company. What's up, brother?
Brandon.
Episode 4, the bittersweet finale to an awesome podcast series.
The last one, man, the last episode of this series. So pretty excited about it.
This is it. Yeah, we'll probably have another series. You're awesome. I've enjoyed it. And I quite honestly, I'm so honored and humbled that I was your first podcast series. I feel like you're speaking at Sherwin. I'm pretty sure I'm about to start seeing you on probably billboards and motivational TV commercials. So I'm just glad I got to know you, early on.
No, man. I'm really honored to be working with you too. So feels good.
But networking is something you're strong at. You and I that's how we initially got to know each other, really. And we've been at actually quite a few events together. So let's get into it.
Yeah. So networking, man. Whenever um, I was thinking about doing it because it's you'll if you listen to a lot of the people out there that are being successful in their businesses and with whatever business they have or they take. They always talk about the importance of the relationships, right? Getting to know people, like getting to know someone new every day, that is really important, right? And for me, it was like, oh my God, I don't know, because I mean, I seem like a outgoing guy and whatnot, but from the inside, like I sometimes I am kind of like shy.
You hate people secretly. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's it's kind of like a little bit fearful, right? To go out there and getting to shake somebody else's hand without knowing them or just trying to, start a conversation. For me, it was at the beginning, it was a little bit tough. But as you start doing it more and more, you start getting used to it, right? And then you're like, okay, cool. And then once you start seeing too the results of networking and seeing that you can learn from other people or that you can, that might be your next client as well. It starts to pay off. And then you're like, oh my God, like really like relationships are a key to having a successful, business or painting business.
Yeah, that actually surprises me a little bit because you are very outgoing. You appear very extroverted, although sometimes, people have introversion and extroversion both. But I want to get into this idea you were nervous to kind of, go out, shake people's hand, put yourself out there a little bit, because I think a lot of people are like that. And I think we talk about network, it's important, the community, all that's true, but we never really focus on kind of the fear. So how did you get past that?
So for me it was in the beginning, right? Whenever I was, even when you start handing out cards, right, your business cards to people, So for me, whenever I was out there at Home Depot, Sherwin-Williams, all these paint stores where I was trying to like make contact with different people, that was like one of my kind of like my nerve-wracking things to do. Because it was like, oh my God, I feel shy about this. I don't know how this is gonna go. I feel like if I get rejected, I'm gonna feel bad, and I do care a lot about people. So I'm really sometimes emotional in that end. And I was like, oh my God, what do they tell me? Hey, get out of here, what not. But just facing your fear. I think facing my fear was a really important thing for me to do. Just getting out there and rubbing shoulders with different people and trying to give pass out or in this case trying to bring the word out that hey, I'm in business. I want to I'm looking for customers and things like that.
So your initial networking was really geared toward business development,
Right.
going out Home Depot, meeting people, business cards. And I think a lot of times new business owners will suffer from things like imposter syndrome, feel like they don't belong there or not good enough. And then the fear of rejection, I think, is pretty much universal. No one really likes being rejected. How did you just brute force yourself? Did you say, "Hey, I'm afraid that they're going to basically tell me I'm not good enough or get away or I don't want your services and maybe even be rude about it, but I'm going to do it anyways," or was any kind of like mental Jedi trick that you employed?
Yeah, definitely. Everything's on your mind, right? Because we all create this many stories in our heads that this is going to happen. And most of the time, whenever you go out there, you make it, you do it, then and never if someone starts to look at your car. Like for example, me, I remember I was one day at the Home Depot and I was starting to do this and I was handing in cards. Every now and then I would see people like really interested on it and start looking at my car and be like, oh my God, I got a project actually coming soon. I'll probably be giving you a shout in the next couple of days. And that feel right there just makes you want to do it more and more. Because then you know that, okay, cool, I got rejected a couple of times, but now I'm also seeing, the results where people are just telling me, hey, you know what, some good feedback, right, from them. So I think getting to do it and getting rejected a couple of times, it's fine. And then once you start receiving those good feedbacks from people that are really interested on doing some work together, then that just feels like okay, cool, like this is something that I can be doing because there's business out there that I can be getting. So just getting out that negativity or that mindset sometimes, like just shifting that. If you're thinking that oh my God, I'm going to get rejected or this is going to happen, or you start creating all these stories, just get rid of that and oversee that and just see that there's potential and you might be able to get some business doing that.
Yeah, a lot of times we build things up in our minds to being bigger or scarier or harder than they necessarily are. Right.
Right, right. And at the end of the day, it's just going to be your mindset, right? It's like, okay, cool. Like I just have to face this fear. I got to get to it, and I'm just going to do it because I know that this is the steps for me to get to where I want to be.
One tactic I've used when I've done things that were really uncomfortable is I almost pretend like I have an invincibility cloak. Right. And so and when people interact negatively, so say I'm at Home Depot and I'm handing out business cards, and maybe someone says no or like piss off, right, or get away. I realize that they're not talking to me. They're talking to the situation, right? I'm impervious to it because I'm simply a part of this situation. And they are essentially reflecting their own perception of the world or how they choose to interact or really any potential issues they may have versus anything personal on me because they don't even know who I am. Right. And I think we tend to take things so personally. But if you say, hey, I'm a business, I'm a new business, one of the ways that I heard that's good to drum up some customers is to go to Home Depot or go door knocking or go to these different grassroots avenues. They don't cost money. I don't have a lot of money to invest right now. So I'm going to go do this because that's what I should do. I have a financial fiduciary duty to my company, to my family, to go do this. Even if that company is only me right now, I have a duty to do it. Right. So I'm going to go do it. I'm going to put myself in a situation. And I understand different people are going to react different ways to that situation. There's nothing unethical. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing sleazy about what I'm doing. I'm doing what I should do as a new business owner. And then other people will react how they choose to react. And I think if you can kind of almost box it up and you're not personally going out there, you're doing the duty of your business. You're doing what you need to do. You're doing what you ethically should do if you're going to start and grow a company.
Yeah, definitely 100% with you on that. It's that it's things that you have to basically do for your business. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and another thing I try to focus on in just business and life in general is you're gonna get a positive outcome either way. Because if something goes well, like you got those highs, right? People look at it, oh, I have a project coming up soon. I think I'm actually going to be giving you a call. Man, that feels good. Wow, it's like the rewards, what we're actually there to do. But then you get some lows, some people who are maybe not interested, maybe didn't even take the card, maybe they muttered something, right? Those are kind of lows. You either are getting the high in such that what you're doing in business is working, it worked the way that you wanted it to work, or you're getting the low in the sense that you get a learning, right? And I think if you can shift your mind as an entrepreneur to you win either way, like you have some new initiative, let's say you don't do cabinet refinishing, but now you want to roll out cabinet refinishing. Your team bought you some jobs, you decide this probably isn't the right fit for your company. You could view it as a huge failure, or you could view it as a learning. And I think the sooner you can become almost ultra positive because everything's either a win or it's a win in a different kind of way, the better your entrepreneurial life and journey will be.
Right. And you're right. You start getting better at it. The more you do it, the better you start getting. Because if you don't go out there and you don't start doing it, then you're not gonna know how good you can be at it if you don't go and try it.
Yeah. And one of the things you've displayed throughout this whole podcast series is positivity. You haven't talked a ton specifically about it, but you've demonstrated it. And so I think it's important for listeners to recognize it's a real thing. And it's not that you haven't taken lumps, you haven't taken hits, bad things haven't happened to your business. The same things that happen to their businesses happen to yours. But you've maintained this positive mindset, which has allowed you to scale to $2 million. You're still going to take hits. Bad things are still going to happen to you. That never ends, folks. Unfortunately, that part it almost gets worse in some ways. But yeah, you got to have that mindset,
Sometimes people say more money, more problems, right?
right?
Uh,
You
but
have problems either way, though. What I say is I'd rather have money and problems than not money and problems. You're gonna have
right,
problems either way.
right. Sometimes it's good problems to have, right? Or
Yeah.
having problems sometimes might be good.
Better
So
pro You've upgraded your problems.
yeah. But yeah, no, definitely that mentality, having being positive, having that positive attitude, it's always gonna get you, where you want to be at. It's always staying positive, even though it might be a negative situation where you might be in, with somebody that just looks at your card or throws it in front of you or whatnot, then you gotta stay positive. You always have to, think, okay, cool, like, it didn't work out here, but it's gonna work out somewhere else. And I did it where some of my first projects, whenever they started coming in after I started investing in marketing and all that stuff, when I was always putting cards out there, and I started receiving calls from actual customers that were calling me because, I gave them a card uh, at Home Depot. It was just kind of like, for me, I was so grateful about it. I was like, oh my God, like this is truly what can help you grow your business or get business, right? And then from there, you start realizing, okay, cool, like what else do I need to do? Like, I know that I gotta hand out cars and things like that, but where could I go? How can I meet people? Where it's gonna be more like, talking about business, whatnot. And then there's a lot of networking groups that you can go to, right? And you just gotta. What I did was I started looking up on Google. Like, for example, I knew that my back when I started, one of my top customers were realtors, right? So I started looking up for realtor groups, like where are these people networking at? And I started going to those and events, right? And I'll go in there and I'll just introduce myself. And I didn't know how to introduce myself. Like, oh my God, how do I approach these people, right? They're in a whole different industry. And I have to, change or look up, different things on how to, how could I present myself to these people? And then you just start, you start getting better at it. The first presentations might be a poor, but after you keep on doing it and you see how other people do it, then you're like, oh my God, that just starts to just basically click on you and you start learning from them. And then that's the way that you start doing your own thing too.
So those kinds of groups, which are the ones that you found most effective?
So the ones that I'm currently using right now, it's going to be like, for example, BNI. It's an important group for me, has helped me a lot with the business. It's basically where you go in there, and for people that don't know, there's some different businesses in there, and they only have, like, for example, one painter, one roofer from that whole networking group. And the keys or the key here in this group is for them to be referring people and you referring them people to them as well, to these different businesses. And you're the only painter there, you're the only roofer, you're the only with whatever trade you're from. You're able to get business from all this. If there's 60 people in this group, they'll all have to send you business to you. Like you're the only painter that they're allowed to send business to. And then that's how you scale on that group.
What if the BNI already has a painter?
Like you're not allowed in it. So I remember whenever I first tried trying to look for a group for me to join or for a company to join, it was kind of like nerve-wracking too because I would go in there and they'll have a painter and I'll still go in there, right? And they just didn't allow me to present or anything like that. But I'll see, okay, cool, like how do they present and what stuff. And then I was like, okay, I gotta find a group that doesn't have a painter until you do. You find a group that doesn't have a painter, you stick to it, and then you'll ask, and you don't start getting work like right the next day. Networking doesn't work that way. Sometimes we think, oh my God, we're gonna start getting, I'm gonna go to all these networking events, and the next day I'm gonna start getting a whole bunch of jobs or leads or whatnot. But it doesn't happen that way. It's over time because at the end of the day, you're also building trust with these people, right? They don't know you, but the more consistent you are on assisting their events, then you start becoming more natural, more normal to them, and then they start learning more about you. And then when they start knowing who you really are, then they'll start sending you leads and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's a super good point. Networking is about relationships and about trust. And if someone refers a customer to you, then they are putting their name on you. And any reasonably cautious person would not want to do that until they felt pretty comfortable with you.
Right. It's the same way. Like whenever you're gonna refer someone, I see it on my own perspective, right? It's like whenever I'm gonna refer someone, it's like, okay, cool. Like if I'm gonna refer someone, it's because I know that they do good job or good work, right? I'm not just gonna refer someone that I don't know. So it's definitely creating that relationship. That's what when you go out there, you might be shy the first time, but then you go the next time and then you start to get used to the same people and then they start to get you to know you and then you guys start referring each other.
Yeah, 100%. Are there any other groups other than the BNI that you would recommend?
Yes, BNI, your Chamber of Commerce group. That's another important one too. For me, that has opened the doors as well. Like if you're a certain city, you look up, hey, Chamber of Commerce, in your city, and then join that group, right? If that's something that you feel and you can visit those groups before you join them. You'll go in there and then you'll see how the environment is and you'll talk to different people in there. And if you feel that's the right group for you, then you join. If you don't feel like there's plenty of other groups out there.
Yeah, love it. So we've talked about networking from a very, very grassroots level. So handing out business cards in Home Depot, I would say things like door knocking are very similar to that. It's just pounding the pavement, right? Pounding the street. And then we've talked about joining these local groups with other business owners. You can create a network where you refer customers, they refer customers, everybody wins, and you build trust. Are there any other purely biz dev, so business development? Are there any other channels that you want to talk about before we kind of maybe shift into some more of the professional networking?
In terms of that, I mean, it's just going to depend on where you are. If you're commercial, uh, business, then there's other type of networking groups in there, right? Like BOMA, it's one of for the commercial painters. We're actually launching our commercial, like we're expanding our commercial department, and we're hoping to start seeing kind of like some results by the end of this year or maybe beginning of next year. But we're starting to going out to this networking groups, and the crazy thing about it is they do have painters in there. Like there's whole bunch of other painting companies in there. And it's like that. And this is something that for me was kind of like, oh my God, but how am I gonna do it? Like I'm gonna go out to this networking group where they already have 2, 3 other painting companies that they're, also trying to gain work from all these other people or these businesses. Like, how do I go in there and how do I compete with these people? But in reality, it's not really you're competing against them. You're just gonna be yourself, right? You're going to be yourself and you're going to talk about what you guys do good. And then at the end of the day, there's plenty of food for everyone.
Yeah, that abundance versus scarcity mindset. And I want to go back to when you said you were sitting in a BNI group and there was a painter already in that group, so you weren't allowed to present. That would be uncomfortable for a lot of people, right? I can't imagine the painter loved it, right? Even with an abundance mindset, he might have had mixed feelings about it, even if he was nice about it. A lot of people would be kind of nervous to do that, to go into a group and sort of sit there with a competitor. But again, you're putting yourself out there in an ethical way. You're not trying to violate the rules of the group or anything like that, or take away
Right.
his business. But you're repeatedly putting yourself in situations that are a little bit uncomfortable, and you're clearly reaping the rewards from doing so.
Right, right, definitely. And having that, it's you'll be surprised, right, that you'll find all these other painters as well in there, or you might see them. Sometimes it has happened to me whenever I'm giving an estimate, and there's like two, three other painting companies in there, right, where we're giving the same estimate to the same customer
At the
um,
same time,
at the same time.
that's funny, man.
The crazy thing is that that's how I met our one of our production manager. I met him through an estimate, like doing an estimate actually. And after that, we connected and you know we did look at the job and all that stuff, but we felt like our conversation was I guess because we saw that the customer was just shopping around and you know she had a whole bunch of companies, like five companies in there, and we're like, man, what is this person doing, right? She was just looking for the cheapest quote, I guess.
I've never heard of a situation like that with that many companies at one time giving a quote. How do you handle stuff like that?
I mean, at the end of the day, you just gotta be yourself, right? The way that you compose yourself, if they're not there, that's the way that you have to be, right? Asking the right questions, and then sometimes you'll see another company might take the lead because I've been there where like the customers basically talking to all four companies, and we're all walking with the person behind, and like we all asking questions, and it for me, I mean, that was like the beginnings of and nowadays. I call them and I just want to make sure that, you know, before we arrive, we have just the customer there giving us the full attention. But,
Yep.
you know, at the beginning, it was just we didn't do no pre-quals or confirmation or anything like that. But now we do because we know that this things might happen.
Yeah, no, I don't even think that that estimate should be conducted under those circumstances. I would leave. You're not like a duckling, following along mommy duck or competing in some kind of beauty pageant or who's the
Yeah.
cheapest pageant. That's
Hey,
for
but
damn sure.
whenever you're starting, man, you don't look at those things. You just
Oh,
want
of course.
you want to get some work, man. So I was like, oh my God, I was so desperate getting some
Oh,
work.
there's
Uh,
I'll go ahead.
no, you do.
There's a quote um one of my mentors said that I think is really good. If you're not embarrassed by what you were doing a year ago, then you're not moving fast enough.
Oh,
I
that's a
think
good
that quote has really stuck with me. Yeah, if I look back a year ago, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. But then what have you been doing the past year? If I look back a year ago, I'm like, oh my gosh, was that? Oh, look at me. Holy God, what was I doing?
yeah.
Cool. Then I've grown a lot over the past year.
That's a very true quote right there. It's true. Like I always look in the to the past and I always see, oh my God, like we've changed so many things on how we used to do business a year ago. But that's true. I mean that's how you're growing, right? That's how you know that you're growing.
Yeah, love it. Okay, let's get into some of the ways that you and I have really spent a lot of time together, which is not really networking for business development so much as it is networking with peers and to get better at business. How do you look at that?
Well, I met you at the PCA. So the PCA could be, another, I guess, another way of like networking, right? And this is just
Mhm.
more like a growth internally, right? As a business owner, like how do you want to grow? Like what, things that you can learn from all these amazing business owners that you're meeting. So definitely for me, PCA was actually the first one where I went into networking actually for learning how to manage my business or what things to do in business basically.
Yeah. So how did that change? Let's talk about that first, because we met in person at PCA Expo. We had spoken previously. I think you found us online or something. We had connected, but then we wanted to meet in person. How did your business change from that? As you know, I'm a huge PCA advocate, right? Super involved with the PCA. How did your business change from before you went to maybe after you left that initial expo?
I mean, it was a 360-degree change, man. Definitely. It was a big change. When I went in there, basically I was looking in like I wanted to grow, right? I want me to scale. How do I do it? I knew that there was people there that were going to help me kind of like give me some pointers on how to, achieve whatever I wanted to achieve. And it was definitely a big game changer on my end. It was all about asking questions of the things that I wanted to do, right? Like, oh my God, like how do I implement systems? Like, what are you doing in the business like that I need to be doing too? Uh, like there's so many, and I know a lot of people that are watching or listening to this podcast probably are the same way right now, where they're asking so many questions to themselves and they don't have the answers to. Well, I was able to, find those answers when I went to the PCA.
Yeah. So for people who are listening who have not are not part of the Painting Contractors Association, PCA, or who haven't been to Expo, if you go to pcapainted.org, PCAPAINTED.org, and then /expo, you can actually register there. The next PCA Expo is going to be February 3rd to 7th, 2025 in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So do register. There are so many stories of people's lives being changed through the PCA and through meeting people like Candelario. These are the kinds of people you can meet. You can go there, you can sit there, have lunch, have a beer with Candelario, talk with him, go to all these sessions. It's going to change your life.
Yeah, definitely. But it was I think PCA is one of I mean it is the Paint Contractors Association. So kind of like all the paint contractors are there. And it's for me, it was like how humble, like all, because I was sometimes I would be sitting with people that are, that were, whenever I first went to the PCA, I was doing like $500,000. And you'll talk about numbers like, hey, where you at on numbers? And you'll see some people say 2 million, 3 million, and you're like, oh my God. And the way they said it is so humble. It's like, oh my God, like, like, you didn't feel ashamed of saying, okay, I'm a 500,000, where someone is at 2 million, and they will kind of like give you their hand, to help you out. So it's kind of like, it's that humbleness from all these great folks out around there.
Yeah, it's incredible. And you get a lot of people well under 500,000 who come, and then you'll get some of these commercial painting companies tens of millions. It's nuts how big some of them
Yeah.
are. I mean, Alpine Painting and Sandblasting, Dave Scaturo, I mean, north of 20. I don't know where he's at, but it's heavy.
Yeah. And what I would say to a lot of people is like, if you're like, let's say you're under, you're under 1 million, you're under 500,000 or whatnot, whatever number it is, don't feel shy about it. Like none of these people are gonna treat you like less. For me, it was kind of like that feeling of like being in the middle of all these people that were making way more money than I was, and just the way they treated me, the advice, the tips and everything that they would be giving me or whatnot. It was just for me so gratifying, right? Like being knowing that, okay, cool, like numbers didn't really matter. What matters, like, you're contributing with each other. So
So and I've actually sat at round tables. So they have this thing called brain meld, and everyone sits around and there's a topic and you discuss it, and there are different moderators. And I've moderated round tables where there are small companies that are imparting wisdom to much larger companies and saying they do this thing or they've tried that thing, and you can see the bigger company owner being like, oh wow, yeah, I want to try that. I'm going to actually roll that out to the team, pull out the phone, send an email to their office manager, whoever it is. So this advice, all of these, I guess, trade secrets, what how the scarcity mindset, how people used to think about it, um, it flows all directions. It's not just you're going to learn from them; they're also going to learn from you. It's a really open and awesome place.
yeah, because there's some people in this industry that they know the business side of things and they don't know, the how to do it, how to paint or whatnot.
Yep.
And then you'll get to learn from all these people, right? Because there's the actual painters that do the paint work, and then there's people that know the business aspect of things. But then you start listening to how they do things, and you're like, oh my God, like, this is changes that we could do so that our production can get better.
Yeah.
Or in terms of like, if you're a painter and you're getting advice from people that know the business side of things, aspects more than you, then you're able to learn some tips as well and be like, okay, I can implement this and I can have my numbers grow.
So we talked about with networking for business and these groups, building trust, building relationships, letting people see who you are, the kinds of company, kind of work you do, and the kind of company you run, so they feel comfortable putting a name behind that, right? And then adding value to them. With professional we'll call it peer-to-peer networking like this, where you're really learning from painting company owners that have maybe come before you a little farther along. What advice do you have for how to most effectively network in these circumstances?
So I will say, first of all, just get yourself up, out there. Like don't be shy. Go out there. And second of all, ask as many questions as possible, right? Don't stay quiet because sometimes you'll see in this round tables, people won't say anything. Like it's important for you to speak up, right? Ask the question. Don't feel ashamed about, whatever you're gonna ask. Just ask it. And that's the way that you're gonna learn. If you don't ask, then nobody knows what you're going through. Sometimes we'll go in there and we'll just, find a corner and that's our spot. But no, just get in the middle of everyone and then just ask the question and don't be ashamed about it. And you're gonna learn from all these people.
Yeah, and so engage. Don't be a wallflower.
Yes, yes,
Although
definitely.
step one's just getting there. If you think you might have to go and you might kind of clam up and be a wallflower, then go be a wallflower. Step one's just walk into the room.
Right. Just walk in the middle of the room and then just, be yourself. Just ask the questions that you need to ask.
Yeah. And then the one of the huge things from these events is the network you develop that's ongoing, right? So you'll meet different people and you'll learn a ton of things at the expo and at other events, but then you'll actually become friends with other painting company owners. One of the toughest things about being an entrepreneur, at least for me early on, was not having other entrepreneurial friends. All my friends had jobs. And so there was no one I could really talk with, commute. They didn't understand the struggle. I couldn't really seek advice from them. And as I've grown and joined more groups and sought mentors, I now have a lot of, people in my ecosystem that I can rely on and learn from. And that's what things like this provide painting company owners. Because so often you start the painting company, you go out, every other painter is your enemy, and you're just hustling and grinding, but you don't truly have a mentorship or network to help you.
Right. So and you'll get a lot of this feedback from people that you'll meet in there, right? And I've gotten a lot of friends from going to, like, for example, the PCA. Like I still, stay in touch with a couple of them, and we'll talk and we'll, okay, how do you use your software? What is your production rate? How do you use it? How do you apply it? What's going on right now? How's the market in your area? What are you doing to stay afloat? And then it's just like it becomes like mentoring, each other.
Yeah. And then there are other events that you've attended, right? So I know you've gone to some sales training with Jason Phillips. He runs a company called Contractor Freedom Summit. And you really, I believe, became familiar with Jason through the PCA.
Yeah.
And the PCA is these statewide gathering groups, and now you participate in that. So you're doing these more localized networking. And when you step out of your comfort zone, you go into an event, especially PCA Expo, there are a whole lot of other events and other opportunities that open up for you. It's not just that event.
Right, right. We have our Texas Gathering of Painters. We've gone to Jason's Phillips over there in Dallas with their group, and then they've also come to here to Austin. Fred is the one that runs the one here from Austin, and we're always out here. And whenever we have our meetings, it's, we'll just talk about business. We'll talk about, marketing one day, and then the next day the next day that we'll have the event, we'll talk about, financials. Like, and it's just a lot of great information for all the painting companies out there that feel that they're alone. You're not alone. There's a lot of people that were in the same position you are, and we're able to help each other.
And I think there are a lot of people who are afraid to open up about their company for there's fear of judgment. There's fear of people maybe looking down on them or whatnot, the vulnerability of it. But then there's also the fear of competition. Like, well, Candelario, if we're in the same market and I tell you how I'm running my business, you could use that to try to beat me in the market. But if you think about that, if you think about Candelario and Fred Hamilton and these guys meeting monthly or quarterly or however frequently they're meeting, communicating all the time, talking about what's working, what's not working, the finances, the marketing, what are you guys doing? And then you think about yourself over on an island, are you more or less advantageous to potentially join that conversation? You're getting hurt a lot worse by trying to guard your secrets, but not getting the help from all these other companies that are willing to help you.
Right. Sometimes we have that kind of like that ego, right? That we know it all. that we're not going to learn from no one else. Like, oh, what can I learn from this guy,
I've been
right?
doing this for 30 years, Candelario. You can't teach me anything.
Right. We start putting that barrier in the middle, in between, us and the world. And it's kind of like, that's the first thing that you have to break. You have to take that out of, and just, throw it to the trash, and making sure that there's a lot of opportunity of growth and you can learn from everyone. And we talked about that earlier, right? We were talking about how you can learn from everyone. I think that's the right way of seeing things, right? Is being able to know that there's something that you can take, and definitely in these meetings, you'll take something out of it.
And it's shifting. You know, it truly is shifting. The painting contracting space is 100% shifting. Private equity is taking an interest in it, right? People are seeing the value of home service companies with the insane evolutions of technology with AI and everything that's going on right now. There and the lack of labor, really that has been been not flooding into the home service and contractor space. The whole dynamic is shifting. And so there's this well of opportunity, but it's not going to be this. It's not going to be your daddy's painting company in 10 years. Your daddy's painting company is not going to be crushing it in 10 years. So if you don't join these conversations and figure out what other people are doing and changes they're seeing in the market and figure out how to adapt, you will fall behind.
All right, and that's what we're go with kind of like that phrase where everybody says that we're trying to professionalize the industry, right? We're trying to
Mm.
all we're trying to help different painters that are. I was at that Sherwin Williams event. I was there, and I asked a question where there was like quite a few people in there, and 80% of them are not using a estimating software. They don't know about them. And I'm like, oh my God, like like that was like 20% of them raise their hands, and they're using either a Paint Scout, Joyce, all these other softwares that are out there, but the other 80% were not. So then that means that there's a big gap, right, into becoming professional, not being as professional enough. So it's like we have a long way to go as a painting industry.
Yeah. But when you have companies, when you have private equity, so I worked in private equity for several years. When you have an interest coming in from that industry, what's going to happen is it will expedite change because they will come in, they'll buy companies, they'll roll companies up, and they'll steamroll companies because private equity is pretty brutal. So it will expedite change. Change might occur on its own in 15, 20 years. Private equity will probably compress that timeline in half. So I think that's something that is easy to miss or to not know, but I think it's really critical to see that more macro trend heading toward home services and painting in particular, because it is imperative that you kind of adapt or die, right? If you adapt, you can survive, you can flourish, you can grow, or you can continue on the same business model and see where you're at in a decade.
Right. But I mean, it's a good thing to be part of this networking groups where you're able to kind of like know what's going on out in the industry. So that way that way we're able to help each other and know that okay, cool, like we need to make changes in our business, because if not, we're just going to stay in the same place all the time.
100%. And you get access to more data, right? So you guys talk about marketing. So we're, election year. We just started the second half, 2024. Well, the buying cycle is going to be longer. Inflation's still high. The work is there, but people are holding onto their dollars and taking longer to make decisions. The cost of lead will go up. Will continue to go up this year because that's what happens during election years because of all the money that pours into online platforms. But then also algorithms change, platforms change. Google pay-per-click was highly effective a year and a half, 2 years ago. It's incredibly expensive right now for a painting contractor. If you're just doing it yourself and you're living in a silo, then you don't know if it just stopped working for you and you should just keep trying to do it or figure out a different way to do it, or if it's an industry-wide thing and you should make an adjustment. So you're losing access to all this valuable data because of Candelario's over there running, Google ads, and you're running Google ads, and Fred's running Google ads, and now it stopped working for all of you and you're all trying different things. Well, it's probably time to maybe steer clear of Google ads right now versus, oh, there's just something you did wrong and you're going to spend thousands and thousands of more dollars trying to figure it out because you don't know it's an industry-wide thing. So don't neglect access to data because you refuse to develop a professional network.
Definitely, man. Definitely. I was just listening the other day. When was it? About a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, to Ron from Paint Tigers.
Mm,
Pretty cool guy, man. And I
super
was
cool guy.
I was listening to him and he was talking about uh, the I guess the shift on the market for the month of June. He was kind of giving an update on what happens in May, what happens in June, and then for him, normally June is kind of has a little dip into it, and then because of what's going on, and then July is supposed to pick up. And he talks about, hey, how now not to put more dollars into the month of June because you're not going to get anything out of it because of what the market is doing. But those things like that, you'll see what's going on. Okay, cool. Now I see why I have a little dip on my
Yep.
month of June. So you're able to stay updated.
Otherwise, you think it's just you, or
Right.
you think you're doing something wrong, or you need to make some big shift. But if you make the wrong shift, then it's super counterproductive. Because now when Ron's having a good July or a great August, or whenever he kind of sees that uptick come back, you're over here in La La Land doing something different because you thought your previous strategy didn't work anymore.
Right, right. So that's the importance of looking at different data. So what's going on around basically your perimeter.
Yeah, I love it, man. Um, awesome. Well, we've talked a lot about networking, both business development and peer to peer. Is there anything else you want to add to how to effectively network for your painting company?
I think overall, networking is going to be the key to your success in the paint. It's going to be part of that key of your success in the painting industry or whatever business you're in. Definitely, relationships are way more than money because you can buy a lead here and there, but if you have a relationship with someone, it's like you might get work like all year around depending on that relationship with the person.
Yeah, absolutely. And as the algorithms change and the cost of lead goes up or goes down, that can be, I mean, those can be lifeboats for you. There are other fishing lines, there are other marketing channels, and they tend to close well because
Right.
they're a referral, so they're already trusted. So it's typically a quite a warm lead.
Yep. And then also like not just in terms of gaining business, but also like let's say you're going through a something difficult in your business, you're able to get that phone and call one of your someone that you know that you met in the networking event or whatnot, or that you networked with before, and you'll ask, hey, what, I'm going through this, and what can I do in these situations? And that might be able to help your boat to stay afloat.
Yeah. So we covered throughout the series, our first episode, we really talked about the systems to scale, effective systems. Second episode, we talked about knowing your numbers is critical. Got into the CPA dashboard you have and some cool stuff you're doing there. In the last episode, episode 3, we talked about reinvesting into your business and how you really focused on all the marketing channels. The small one you started with that's not as profitable anymore, but it still makes you money, so you still do it and you have some loyalty. And then the other additional channels that you've opened up. And then this episode, we've talked about networking and putting yourself out there, being willing to be uncomfortable, get comfortable being uncomfortable is how I like to say it, and growing and learning from other people. As we finalize this series, and it comes to a bittersweet end, Candelario. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, man, I just want to say thank you to you, Brendan, for the opportunity, right? This is first time I do something like this, but it's you got to get in that uncomfortable position like we were talking about, right? It's really important for you to just step out of your comfortable zone. Whenever you step out of your comfortable zone, then you're gonna see things changes, right? And you're gonna be able to kind of like grow on, and you're gonna feel good about yourself too, because you're able to do. I don't know if you guys whoever is listening, but whenever you guys are like in a comfortable position, once you're done with it, like you feel relieved. You feel like, oh my God, it happened
That's
already,
how you're
right?
about to feel. 100%.
That's what I'm about to feel right now.
Yeah. Well, man, that's true. I hadn't even thought about that. This is your first, and you just dove into a whole series. You weren't like, hey, let me try one podcast. I said, let's do a 4 episode series. Because I already, from knowing you for so long, I knew you would do great. But that's kind of scary.
Yeah, I was expecting for one episode. I mean, we were able to do four, which is like, oh my God, I'm probably sweating right now, but we're good.
You killed it. Candelario, I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you being so open and sharing this. I think it's going to impact a lot of people's lives. And thank you for your time, man.
Yeah, no, no, thank you, Brendan, again for having me here, and then I appreciate you for everything.
If you want to learn more about the topics we discussed in this podcast and how you can use them to grow your painting business, visit paintermarketingpros.com/podcast for free training, as well as the ability to schedule a personalized strategy session for your painting company. Again, that URL is paintermarketingpros.com/podcast. Hey there, painting company owners. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give us your feedback. Let us know how we did. And also, if you're interested in taking your painting business to the next level, make sure you visit the Painter Marketing Pros website at paintermarketingpros.com to learn more about our services. You can also reach out to me directly by emailing me at brandon@paintermarketingpros.com, and I can give you personalized advice on growing your painting business. Until next time, keep growing.